much, Martin, and good afternoon, everybody. Forgive me if I go through some of the things that you've heard already, but just so we try and get some of the facts out and what we're doing. I mean, the main point to make, obviously, is that we're extremely concerned about the human and humanitarian impact of what has obviously been a devastating earthquake in Haiti, particularly in Port-au-Prince and the surrounding areas. I think you know the basic facts that the earthquake was 7.0 on the Richter scale, struck at approximately 16:53 hours local time yesterday, some 17 kilometers from Port-au-Prince and at a depth of less than 10 kilometers, which helps to explain why it's been so devastating for the capital. There have been many aftershocks, and those are continuing. Just to give some of the basics, again, the population of Port-au-Prince is around 2.8 million people, and the population of Haiti altogether is just over 9 million. We believe that there are something like 3 to 3.5 million people who live in areas which have been affected by strong shaking from the earthquake. We have limited information about the impact of the earthquake, not only in Port-au-Prince but also in surrounding areas, but we know that, for example, in the city of Jacmel, which I think is northwest of Port-au-Prince, there are many buildings down there too, and the town of Carrefour, which is not far from Port-au-Prince, has also been significantly affected, while the town of Gonaïves, which is further away, which is very badly affected by the cyclones a couple of years ago, or a year ago I should say, has not been so badly affected as far as we know. Initial reports suggest a high number of casualties and of course widespread damage, but I don't have any figures that I can give you of any reliability about what the number of casualties will be, or indeed the full extent of the damage. We're still trying to get good information about that. As you know, the UN's been part of the victims of this earthquake. The main MINUSTA headquarters in the Hotel Christopher was collapsed, and there are still some 50 to 100 MINUSTA staff who are trapped in there. And I don't have any more news to give you about that or about the SRSG or his deputy at the moment, I'm afraid. Other UN installations were also affected, particularly UNDP, which had a smaller building destroyed, and we believe there were 10 staff of them trapped in the rubble as well. The other UN agencies, as I said to some of you this morning, seem to be in relatively better shape. UNICEF, the World Food Programme, the World Health Organization, through their Pan American Health Organization, and others seem to be less affected, and therefore, hopefully, should be able to be operational reasonably soon. Such information as we do have, including a helicopter reconnaissance of the city by MINUSTA early this morning, showed a lot of damage to the downtown area and other parts of Port-au-Prince, and some damage to the port. The airport is working to some extent. I think the control tower is damaged or destroyed, but the runway seems to be operating, which is helpful, so aircraft are beginning to come and go from there. There's been a lot of damage to infrastructure, particularly to hospitals as well as to homes. There was no electricity for the moment. The water supplies are also cut off in most of the city. Communications, as many of you will have found for yourself, are also extremely difficult for normal lines and most mobile lines as well. Some of the main roads are now open and functioning, but others are obviously blocked. The main immediate need, as I said this morning, is for search and rescue, urgent search and rescue. There is some progress to report on that, in the sense that I believe a Chinese search and rescue team has already arrived at the airport, at least in Port-au-Prince. I believe 2 US teams will arrive this afternoon, and perhaps 2 more tomorrow, hopefully with heavy equipment as well as experts and dogs and so on. Others are on the way from many countries, including France and Iceland and elsewhere, and not least also from the Dominican Republic. So that kind of help is beginning to arrive, but of course it is desperately needed, and as you're all aware, every hour counts in this kind of situation where people are trapped under the rubble and desperately in need of being rescued. There is also, again, as I said this morning at the stakeout, a desperate need for medical help, medical teams, medical supplies. The hospitals have been very badly affected. I think such hospitals as are working are being overwhelmed by the number of injured and their injuries, so that's another very urgent need. Otherwise, clean water will be, already is, I think, an urgent need too, in the absence of a properly functioning water supply. Food is needed, shelter will be needed because many people are on the streets and unable to return to their homes. So there'll be many needs there which we're trying to assess as best we can at the moment. Obviously, we have very limited information. We expect those needs to increase, and we're making a major effort in the UN system, of course, the NGOs as well, the humanitarian NGOs, to gear up, to mobilize, to give as much help as we can, as quickly as we can. And of course, many countries are also offering help bilaterally. The US, France, Canada, the UK, the European Union, many others, also in Latin America, have already offered help, or help is already on the way in terms of planes. We don't have all the details yet, but there is a very significant and generous international response already underway, and I welcome that very much because, as I say, I think this is a major humanitarian crisis and the needs are going to be extremely great. The advantage we do have in this particular case is that we do have humanitarian agencies on the ground already. They're functioning. They've been there from previous crises, not least the cyclones of 2008, so that we have a head start. But obviously all the agencies, including OCHA ourselves, including the World Food Programme, UNICEF, the NGOs, are mobilizing extra staff, extra teams, and relief supplies as fast as they possibly can. And we're trying to coordinate that in the usual way as best we can. As I said this morning, we're hoping to issue a flash appeal very quickly indeed in the next 2 or 3 days. I don't know how much that will be for or what the breakdown of that will be. That really is too early to say. But we'll issue that as quickly as we can on the basis of whatever knowledge we have. We've already committed, as the Secretary General announced this morning, $10 million as a kickstart from the Central Emergency Response Fund, and we're ready to release more as required by the situation. So assistance is already underway from the World Health Organization, the Pan American Health Organization on the medical side, and other, obviously UNICEF and NGOs. The World Food Programme are already responding. They're airlifting, I think, 86 metric tons of food from their emergency hub in El Salvador already in the form of high energy biscuits, which will feed 30,000 people for up to 7 days, but also a lot more will be on the way very shortly, together with extra emergency staff. And UNICEF are taking a particular interest, apart from the medical side, in water and sanitation, which is going to be a particular problem, as I said. So I think, as I say, there is a significant international effort already underway. It inevitably takes a little time to get everything on the ground, but we're working as hard as we possibly can in the UN system, in the humanitarian community more widely, and in the international community beyond that. Of course, Haiti is a very poor country, as you're all very well aware, which has been struck by many disasters in its past, and therefore has relatively little capacity to tackle these issues itself, and therefore will be particularly in need of international aid this time around.